Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Okay, apa nak cakap ni ya? So for today, technically we have 3 more topics to go. Kita ada long-term financing, kita ada time value of money, and we have the capital budgeting. So 3 topics with 2 more sessions to go before kita punya final test, which scheduled to be on the 5th of July. Okay, so for today, kita akan continue our session with the topic of the long-term financing. Alright, so this long-term financing is the continuation, okay, from the previous topic when we discussed about the short-term financing. The main difference between the previous one and today's session would be the options. Okay, so kalau you can recall, when we did the short-term financing, we have a few options, internal and also external sources. And the way we calculate the cost is by using the effective interest rate, the EIR. So for today, we're going to proceed dengan the subsequent section, which is the long-term financing. Okay, so the main difference will be the tenure lah, the maturity, whereby for long term it involves some of the instruments that last more than 1 year. Okay, so kejap lagi tengok when we talk about the types, characteristics, akan ada some some options comes with 5 years, for example, ataupun 20 years of the terms, and there are some pula yang memang tak ada maturity. Kita panggil dia unlimited life lah. So bila dia unlimited life, so meaning there's no specific maturity. So those also will be considered as a long-term financing. Okay, so typically we're going to start dengan observing all the relevant options available. Okay, so untuk scope yang lebih mudah, kita hanya tengok 3 instrument sahaja, which is the bonds, and then we look at the preferred stocks, and last is the common stocks. So setiap satu types tu kita akan tengok the characteristics and the pros and cons for each of the instruments, and most importantly, for each of the instruments juga kita akan learn how to calculate the cost. Right, as I recall our previous topic, the cost that we did for the short-term financing menggunakan effective interest rate ataupun EIR. Okay, but for today, for the long-term financing, so the cost ni will be represented by the letter K, cost. Okay, since we have 3 different instruments, so kita akan ada 3 cost. Okay, the first cost, we use the symbol KD, cost of debt, hutang. Okay, cost of debt. And then we have the second K, which is cost of preferred stocks, or KPS. Right, and the third one, still K, but now with CS, which is the common stocks. So kita ada 3 jenis cost with 3 different ways how to calculate each cost. Okay, some might be slightly easier as the rest, and yang susah tu pun bukanlah susah macam mana, but it involves a slightly longer steps in order for us to derive the cost for that particular option. Now, again, to start the session, we take a step back, whereby kalau kita ingat from the previous session when we talk about short-term financing, we might have to use the short-term financing usually to cover the fluctuations ataupun the influx of demand. Okay, so bila ada certain period yang memerlukan additional funds for short-term basis, So option yang kita ada, kita gunalah all the short-term financing because we don't need for a long period of time. But there are some moment in time whereby as a company, as a firm, they might require bigger capital. Okay, especially when they need a capital injection to expand their business, for example, or to improve their facility. And because of that, they need additional funds melalui additional capital. Okay, so the long-term financing would be the best solution for this situation lah. But bear in mind, when they want to choose which one would be the best option for them, they need to understand the types of options available. Sebab every options available comes with different risk. Okay, they come dengan different risk because each ada dia punya pros and cons, and at the same time, the level of rates pun berbeza. Sebab unlike short term yang ada some yang kita gunakan the funding from the bank, okay, kita pinjam short term bank loans ataupun we use the revolving credit, itu semuanya datang daripada bank. So dalam case kita ni long term financing ni, we tak take into consideration the options of borrowing from the banks. Okay, so semua option yang kita akan buat hari ni datang from the external sources. Okay, external sources, and it can come from the debt punya section or the equity sections. Okay, so kalau you tengok debt dengan equity ni, you boleh recall by looking at the balance sheets. Okay, dalam balance sheet, you still remember kan, ada assets on one side, and on the others, you akan ada debts ataupun liability, and then you're going to have equity at the bottom half of your balance sheet. So when we talk about long-term financing, your choice is either to use debt, hutang, or to use equity. Okay, so debt mungkin lebih mudah and mungkin lebih murah untuk raise the funds, tapi dia datang dengan strict commitment because the amount that you have to pay selalunya dalam bentuk interest, and that interest is compulsory. Whereas kalau equity, for example, the returns that you have to pay selalunya dalam bentuk dividend to the shareholders, and these dividends are not compulsory. So meaning if your company is not performing well, there's a possibility yang you tak perlu bayar dividend tu. So maknanya dia akan reduce the so-called the obligations to make payment lah to the shareholders. However, again, dia akan ada cons yang lain pula lah for equity. So contohnya for equity, you kena sacrifice in terms of the ownership. So maknanya akan ada interference from others. So tu nanti kita cerita kejap lagi lah. Right, so anyhow, regardless your choice to have a debt ataupun equity, you kena decide satu in terms of the cost, and secondly all the baggage that comes together with the options, right? And you kena ambil maklum ke semua ni sebab dia selalunya melibatkan amount yang besar. It's a huge amount. Selalunya kalau tak ratus ribu, it can be in millions juga. Right? So this is all the additional information. Nanti you baca the difference between debt and equity pun ada dekat sini, and why some corporates ataupun companies might prefer debt over equity. So salah satunya ni lah in terms of the interference I mentioned just now, management control. Sebab equity memang kita kena serahkan some of the powers for decision making dengan the shareholders. Okay, and the debt financing pun sometimes might be preferred because of, like I said, the cost might be cheaper because some of the amount, the interest payment tu is tax deductible. Okay, tax deductible. So that's why in general, yeah, debt tu mungkin lebih murah cost dia, tetapi like I said lah, ada benda lain yang you kena take into consideration before you decide. Cuma from our case, our point of view, untuk course FIN420 ni, when we decide on which option is the best, kita go back to the most basic one lah. So kita hanya pilih which option comes with the cheapest rate, okay, ataupun the lowest rate. Itu kita punya pegangan lah untuk untuk decide on which one is the best. So the three options that we gonna go through today ada tiga. We have bonds, number one, which represent the debt. Ni lah hutang, debt. And we have two equity, okay, which is preferred and also common stocks. Okay, walaupun preferred ni mungkin dia ada element of hybrid, dia ada element of debt juga, ada element of similar like bonds, tapi kita classify dia under equity je lah dalam case ni. Right, so we're going to look for each and every one. Kita akan define setiap satu ni, look at the characteristics, maybe touch a bit about the pros and cons, and last but not least, kita akan go through the calculation of the cost, okay, as usual lah. And as usual juga, I will use some passive questions for illustration purposes, okay, untuk kita nampak lah lebih detail how we can get ataupun we can solve the long-term financing punya questions. Right, so long-term financing tu tak susah sangat nak cari soalan ni sebab almost every semester ada soalan-soalan berkenaan dengan long-term financing. Cuma, again, if you recall, based on the previous sessions, I ada mention, setiap recorded session, I have 4 groups and I might use different questions lah untuk setiap group. Okay, so feel free to browse through the older videos from our groups or even from the other groups untuk tengok comparison of final ataupun past year questions yang sebelum-sebelum ni lah untuk jawapan-jawapan dia. So let's start dengan bonds. Okay, so what is bond? So bond ni kalau nak relate ataupun associate kan, is quite similar macam commercial paper that we did in the short-term financing. It is a promissory note, okay, macam surat janji, perjanjian di mana if you sell a document ataupun a certificate, then in the certificate akan specify you're going to promise to pay a certain rate of returns, okay, for a certain period of time. Itu salah satu information yang ada lah, ataupun salah dua information yang ada in the bonds. So dalam commercial paper, it involve a short-term period of time. But for bonds, dia punya maturity tu beyond 1 year lah. Okay, it will be beyond 1 year. So technically selalunya within 5 to 40 years. So it's very long term. So therefore, bonds can be considered as a long-term promissory notes, and it can be issued either by the government or the business units ataupun the corporate lah dalam case ni, corporate. So long term, as I mentioned, selalunya falls between 5 to 40 years. So very long. Dia punya tarikh matang dia untuk sesuatu issuance of bonds. And in our case, we're going to focus from the corporate's punya point of view. Okay, kita tak tengoklah daripada government ni, kita tengok daripada corporate punya point of view. So imagine you as a company, ataupun you work in a company as in a finance department, ataupun you own a company, and you want to issue a bond. Okay, so bond ni akan ada dua main participants. Right, so we have the company here. Okay, the company which is known as the issuer. So issuer ni apa fungsi dia? Dia akan jual. He's gonna sell the promissory notes ni. So this company yang akan jual. So bila kita jual, automatically we know we're gonna receive funds. Kita akan dapat duit lah. Okay, and who's gonna buy? The buy is the holder. Holder ni would be the investor. Okay, so holder ni adalah pelabur ataupun the investor for the bond, and they technically become the creditor to the company. Okay, pemberi pinjaman lah. And if you put it in this relationship, you're gonna have issuer on one side kat sini, katakanlah issuer dekat sini, and then we have the holder, holder ataupun investor at this side. So it always started dengan issuer. So issuer selalunya akan ada intention to raise fund. Okay, dia perlukan katakanlah 10 million ringgit. So they need RM 10 million. Okay, so issuer needs 10 million ringgit. Okay, again, reason I dah cakap, mungkin dia nak expand dia punya business, dia nak upgrade dia punya facility, nak beli new systems, dia nak tukar new advanced machineries, whatever lah. Banyak je reason dia. So, they need 10 million. So, dia tak nak guna duit dia sendiri. So, dia nak dapatkan funding daripada luar lah. So, they decided, okay, they want to use bond. Contohnya So, what they gonna do, the issuer gonna sell. Dia akan jual sell bonds. Okay, and the holder ni yang ada extra cash akan belilah from the issuer. So, duit daripada holder ni akan channel to the issuer. So, they gonna purchase the bond lah. So, issuer jual, holder beli. So, in return, issuer akan bagi certificate kepada holder, holder akan bagi cash dekat issuer. So, that's how they exchange the transaction lah. Satu bagi certificate, satu orang lagi ataupun satu pihak lagi akan bagi cash. So bila semua certificate of bonds ni sold out, the issuer gonna get 10 million lah. So 10 million, issuer ni akan dapat hari ni contohnya. Remember, the 10 million ni bukan duit issuer The 10 million belongs to the holder originally. Issuer ni just technically pinjam that 10 million. So meaning the 10 million needs to be returned back to the holder. Okay, dia kena pulangkan balik. So that's where the 5 to 40 years ni adalah tempoh yang dia perlu pulangkan balik lah. So dia tak perlu pulangkan balik dalam masa yang dekat, dia akan pulang in future dates. Right. But what happen between now sampai dia mature? Sakat takkan holder bagi duit hari ni, lepas tu dia tak dapat apa-apa kan? So the issuer, okay, in the meantime before the maturity, they have to pay interest annually to the holder. So setiap tahun dia kena bayar interest kepada the bond holders. It's either annually ataupun semi-annually lah. Setahun sekali ataupun 2 kali setahun. Sekali setahun ataupun 2 kali setahun ya. But anyhow, every year dia kena bayar interest to the holders without fail. Mesti. Tak ada exclusion. Okay. And what happened to the 10 million? This 10 million will be repaid juga to the holder. Repay principal at maturity. So pada tarikh maturity ni nanti, the issuer will repay back everything to the holder. So kalau dia pinjam 10 million initially, so semasa maturity dia akan pulangkan balik 10 million back to the all holders. Okay, remember holder ni bukan seorang, selalunya holder dia ada ramai. So we as investors, kita boleh beli bond ni ikut kemampuan kita lah. Mungkin ada orang yang beli 5 pieces of bonds, ada yang mungkin beli 10 certificate, ada yang mungkin beli 100, ada yang mungkin beli 50, depends lah, depends on individual. Right, so at the end of the day, at maturity, the issuer will return everything back to the holder. Cuma beza dia kalau kita imagine the normal loans, bila kita pinjam principal and then the bank akan kira the principal plus the profits ataupun interest, and then kita akan bayar installment setiap bulan kan ataupun setiap tahun. So kita akan divide lah based on the number of months. So the amount yang kita bayar setiap installment tu consists of both principal and interest. Okay, tetapi for bonds, okay, we don't pay the principal at first. We just pay the interest. We serve the interest saja. But we're going to repay the principal at maturity lump sum. Okay, so the difference in terms of how we make repayment lah. Okay, we make repayment tu berbeza sedikit. Okay, so that's how the relationship of bonds berlaku lah. I just explain dia punya context. Okay, so how the relationship works. Okay, how to make sure that the issuer ni truthful dengan all the promises. Maknanya issuer ni kata nak bayar interest setiap tahun. Issuer ni kata nak repay balik everything at maturity sebab dia bukan bank kan. They are not banks. So how to trust them? So we have a contract. Okay, the contract is called the indenture. Indenture ni adalah contractual agreement, and everything will be specified in the indenture lah dalam contract. And who's gonna look after the contracts? Ataupun siapa yang akan memastikan the issuer observe the obligations in the contract. So we're gonna have these two parties. Kita ada trustee and kita ada securities commission. So trustee obviously is part of the contract sebenarnya. Pemegang amanah, trustee. So they are the one who will observe closely whether the issuer ni betul tak dia ikut contract tu. So kalau dia janji bayar 5%, does it pay 5%? So dia kena bayar semi-annually, betul tak dia bayar 2 kali setahun contohnya. So all of those will be reported to the trustee. So trustee akan dapat reports and dia akan make sure the company, the issuer fulfill all the obligations. Okay, tapi kalau ada issue, trustee ni boleh ambil tindakan, boleh reports and dia boleh report to the Securities Commission. So Securities Commission pula dengan power yang dia ada, they can investigate and they can take action as well to the company kalau dia ada issue lah. Okay, if there's any issues with regards to the transactions. So all of this sebenarnya untuk memastikan bila urus niaga bond berlaku dalam Malaysia, semua rights oleh participants terjaga. Sebab kita kena ingat, some of the participants can be international participants, overseas punya participants, foreigners kan. And therefore, as a platform ataupun as a market yang very transparent, very robust, very nak attract international players. So kita kena pastikanlah kita punya market ni very stable and also very efficient lah, in other words. So now let's look at the characteristics. Okay, characteristics of bonds. Okay, so bila I explain macam ni, you kena nampak there are two sides of the story. So ada satu side story from the issuer, okay, and ada satu lagi side of the story from the investor, the holder. Okay, but we are now doing long-term financing and therefore kita punya fokus, imagine ourselves as the issuer lah, sebagai penjual bond ni. And obviously there are some items ataupun cost yang kita kena take into consideration lah bila kita buat the actual cost accounting ni tadi. So let's look at the characteristics. Characteristics yang pertama is in terms of the par value. Okay, so what is par value? Par value is the original value. Okay, original value of the bond. So by default, we assume the par value to be 1,000 ringgit. Okay, this is our assumption, 1,000 ringgit. And there are a few importance of par value. Satu, par value of 1,000 ni will be used as our final amount ataupun final value semasa dia mature. Remember tadi I go back kat sini. So dia bayar principal ni, repay principal at maturity ni. So dia akan bayar satu unit tu RM1,000 to the holder. Sebab bear in mind walaupun par value 1000, the price ataupun the market price of the bond can fluctuates. Harga dia boleh lebih RM1000 and dia boleh kurang daripada RM1000. Okay, sepanjang tempoh tu, the price can start below 1000, then go up, go down, whatever. Tapi bila dia mature, they will go back to the par value 1000. Okay, so that's the main purpose number one lah, which is to be determined as the amount that will be repaid at maturity. And second, this par value will be used as a benchmark to calculate the interest. Okay, so the interest is called the coupon. Okay, the coupon. And this coupon will be paid to the holder. Okay, and this coupon is fixed. Okay, so the rate is fixed. So kalau lah dia 5%, contohnya, 5%, this percentage is based on the par value. So maknanya 5% will be based on RM1000 lah. So darab dengan 1000, the coupon would be RM50 per unit. Per unit. So meaning kalau principal dia 2 juta ringgit, dia gonna be 2000 units of bonds. So kalau satu RM50, so darab lah dengan 2000 unit. So 2 million darab 5% lah. So about 100,000. Okay, about 100,000 ringgit worth of interest needs to be paid every single year. Okay, so tu contoh lah, ni example. And the coupon needs to be paid to the bondholders is either annually, satu kali setahun, or semi-annually, twice a year lah. Okay, so regardless the payment, okay, the rate ni 5% ni akan diterima untuk tempoh 1 tahun. Maksudnya kalau dibayar sekali setahun, in a year dia akan bayar RM50 one time. Tapi kalau dia semi-annually, this 5% akan dipecahkan kepada 2 payment lah. It will be 2.5%, 2.5%, which is RM25 and RM25. Okay, so total setahun masih lagi based on 5%, contohnya lah. Right. One of the common measurement used to value the bond ni adalah the measurement of yield to maturity. Okay, yield to maturity. So one of the common valuation lah dalam bond ni. Okay, and even though YTM ni will be used mostly by investors, contoh ni tadi the holder ni akan gunakan YTM untuk menentukan what will be my return if I buy the bond today and I'm going to keep it until maturity. That is the yield to maturity lah. Okay, rate where the bondholders akan receive ataupun earn from the day they bought the bond until the day the bond mature ataupun expire. But as I said, setiap satu side of the story tu dia akan reflect to the other party. So kalau YTM ni adalah the rate of return untuk investor, we can use that as a cost untuk the other party juga, which is the issuer lah. So that's why kejap lagi bila kita calculate the cost untuk bond ni, we can use the YTM ni as our benchmark. So kita calculate YTM dulu, and from there we can determine what will be the cost of the bonds untuk the issuer lah. Okay, so selain daripada itu adalah lagi additional characteristics including the rights untuk call. Okay, call ni bahasa mudah dia early settlement lah. Early settlement So imagine if the bond issued for 10 years sepatutnya. So kalau dalam indenture, dalam contract bagi tahu, okay, there's a call provision ataupun ada clause untuk call dalam contract, itu menunjukkan ada kemungkinan untuk the issuer to redeem the bond before maturity. So sepatutnya 10 tahun you invest, you dah kira, sepatutnya ada 10 tahun punya return. Kan, sebab you invest kan. Tapi kalau ada call provision pada tahun ke-7 contohnya, for the 7th year, So ada kemungkinan instead of 10 tahun punya return, you punya return stop pada tahun ke-7 je. Sebab tahun ke-7, the issuer boleh redeem, boleh bayar ataupun settle bond ni siap-siap before maturity and stop the bond straight away pada tahun ke-7. So you akan rugi 3 tahun punya return lah. So again, investor akan nampak you gonna rugi 3 tahun punya return. Tapi from issuer point of view, 3 tahun tu adalah 3 tahun punya savings of interest. Sebab dia tak perlu bayar 3 tahun punya interest. So sama macam konsep early settlement kalau kita cerita pasal loan dengan bank lah. Okay. And on top of that, dia ada bond ratings. Semua bond issued in Malaysia, corporate bonds must be rated by rating agencies. So ni contoh-contoh rating agencies yang ada lah. So the rating agencies akan bagi markah ataupun bagi grade to the bond. The higher the ratings, the lower the probability of default. Lower probability of default ni menunjukkan risiko dia rendah lah, risiko untuk dia default, risiko untuk dia tak mampu nak bayar balik tu rendah. So therefore the rating is high. So dia reverse inverse dia punya relationship. The higher the ratings, the lower the chances of default. So vice versa, kalau rating dia rendah, probability untuk dia default tu tinggi. So as investor, you kena decide lah. You nak invest in a high rating bonds ataupun lower rating bonds. Okay. And maturity ada explain tadi usually between 5 to 40 years. Right. So nanti you tolong baca lah the types of bond. Ada dia punya explanation dekat belakang ni. Cuma I nak highlight when it's called the secured bond, it comes with collateral. So maknanya bila the bond issue ataupun the corporate issue a bond, dia akan attach the asset sekali dalam contract tu. So meaning asset tu automatically can be used for liquidation kalau lah tiba-tiba company tu tak mampu nak bayar balik kan. So they can use the asset, jual asset tu, and then proceed from the sales of the asset can be used to make repayments to the bondholders. So apa kebaikan dia kat sini? Dari segi risiko lah, risiko pembayaran balik. Okay, risiko pembayaran balik ataupun the risk of default just now. So mungkin bila kita buat ataupun the rating agencies buat ratings tu tadi, dia pun akan take into consideration sama ada the transaction tu ada collateral ataupun tak. So kalau ada collateral mungkin the rating would be higher. Contohnya lah. Right? So kalau unsecured means without collateral. Okay, tanpa ada apa-apa cagaran. Alright, so nanti tolong baca lah the secured versus the unsecured ni. So the final part untuk bond ni kita akan tengok how to calculate the cost. Okay, the cost. As I mentioned, for the cost of debt ataupun cost of bond, the symbol that we're going to use is the symbol K dengan D ataupun the KD lah. So there are a few considerations before we calculate the actual cost untuk debt ataupun bond ni. Right? So a few concept that you have to understand. So konsep yang pertama is the concept of proceeds. Okay? And again, if you can recall from the previous topic, proceed ni referring to the usable fund. Fund yang kita boleh guna. Okay? So how we derive the usable funds? It depends on two components. Number one, tulis kat sini issue price kan. So I will label them as a market price. Okay, ini adalah harga di mana kita jual ataupun selling price of the bond. Remember tadi konsep dia, we have the par value of 1,000. Okay, RM1,000 as our benchmark. Tetapi the price can go up or go below RM1,000. Depends on the supply and demand. Okay, of the product lah. So maknanya kat sini the market price can go above 1,000. So kalau above 1,000 ni kita panggil the price is at premium, or the price can be lower than 1,000, which we call the price is at discount. Okay, so regardless premium ke discount ke, or even at par value, itu adalah amount yang kita akan terima hasil jualan. Sebab ingat we're gonna sell the bond to the investor. So investor akan bayar ikut market price ataupun the launch price. Right? And we have to take into consideration the cost of issuing, ataupun in short selalunya I use the symbol FC. FC ni adalah the flotation cost. Okay, the flotation cost. So flotation cost adalah cost that we have to pay to the bank. Okay, so even though we don't borrow from the bank, the arranger untuk bond ni selalunya dibuat oleh the investment bank, and we have to pay them fees. Okay, kita kena bayar dia some service charge lah ataupun service fees. So ada portion from our proceeds tu kita kena bayar kepada issuer. Okay, so that's why kita ada cost kat sini. So that's why to get the usable fund, we're going to take the market price and we're going to minus the flotation cost. And that would be our proceeds. Okay, so that's the concept lah. Sama macam sebelum ni masa kita buat commercial paper juga. Okay, sama juga ada konsep, bukan commercial paper saja. All the instruments dalam short term financing ada proceeds kat situ kan, usable fund. And satu lagi konsep when we do cost of debt adalah the concept of the after tax cost. Because out of the three options, okay, bond sahaja kita akan take into consideration the cost after tax. Okay, sebab the payment of interest, okay, the payment of interest that we do then appear dalam kita punya income statement, dia akan appear before the tax, sebelum tax. And that's why when we do the cost of bond ni, kita akan exclude ataupun kita akan ambil the after tax, maknanya kita tolak the tax portion ni in order for us to determine the after tax cost. Okay, so because of that, there are two ways macam mana nak kira the KD ni tadi, the cost of debt. Right. To simplify, okay, to simplify everything, we're not going to look at the DCF method. DCF ni discounted cash flow. Discounted cash flow ni kita tak tengok lah. Reason kenapa? Satu, it's more complex. Okay. And dua, if you have financial calculator contohnya, memang senang je nak guna DCF ni. Okay. And in fact, DCF ni sebenarnya lebih accurate. Okay. Tetapi for simplicity, as I said, I decided to just focus on YTM method lah untuk kali ni for the KD, okay, for the cost of debt punya calculation. So we just use the YTM method lah. YTM ni tadi apa? Yield to maturity method. So, how to proceed dengan the YTM method? So they're gonna be two steps. Okay, there's going to be two steps in calculation of YTM. So first, step number one, kita kena find YTM lah. Okay, so we need to find the YTM, the yield to maturity. Okay, so how to calculate the YTM? So this is the formula. Okay, I tulis dulu the formula and I will explain to you by each items that we need. Okay, so YTM equals to the coupon payment. So I akan tulis sekejap lagi setiap satu tu kat atas. So coupon payment. And we're going to plus with the par value minus proceeds. And we're going to divide by N. So what is N? N ni adalah maturity. Okay, how many years left to maturity. Then we're going to divide everything, okay, by the par value. Again, plus with the proceed. And we divide it by 2. Okay, and then we multiply with 100 lah to get in percentage. Right, so nampak macam complicated, tapi technically we just need 4 items sahaja untuk kita calculate. And one of the item tu memang fix. Setiap soalan memang satu item tu nilai dia sama je. Right, so what are the items? So kita start dengan CP. CP ni adalah coupon payment. Remember, coupon payment ni adalah interest that we have to pay to the investor. So to get the coupon payment, kita ambil percentage of coupon rate, kita darab dengan the par value. So meaning example, kalau macam contoh tadi lah, kalau dia 5%, darab 1,000, the coupon payment will be RM50. Okay, always darab dengan par value lah 1,000. So kalau dia 10%, kalau coupon dia is 10%, so 10% times 1,000, which is RM100. So just multiply with the par value. Okay, so the CP ni, the coupon payment must be in ringgit. Okay, not in percentage, must be in ringgit. So second item ada PV. PV is par value. Par value always 1,000. So this is the fixed amount. Dia tak akan berubah lah. Okay, PV is always RM1,000. Ada soalan ke? Next, we're going to have proceed. Okay, ni proceed. So proceed sebenarnya consists of market price tolak flotation cost. Okay, so this one I already mentioned dekat sini tadi kan. Market price tolak flotation cost is the proceed. Okay, so this is the proceed lah. Market price tolak flotation cost to get the proceed. And then last but not least is N. So N adalah years to maturity. Okay, berapa tahun lagi the bond will mature. Okay, years left to maturity lah. Right, so we have CP, PV, proceed dengan N. Okay, and kat bawah ni kita repeat balik PV dengan proceed, cuma kita bahagi dengan 2. So the number 2 ni another thing yang fix kat sini. Okay, and then solve the equation, multiply with 100, then you get it in percentage. Okay, for the yield to maturity lah. Once you've done this, kita akan conclude dengan step yang kedua, find KD, find the cost of debt lah, ataupun find the after tax cost of debt. So to find the KD, we take the YTM yang kita calculate from step number 1, and we're going to multiply dengan 1 minus X. Okay, so this part is actually yang inilah, yang ini tadi Cuma this portion applicable for both discounted dengan YTM. Cuma since we are doing YTM, I tulis sini YTM lah. YTM darab dengan 1 minus tax. Okay, so this is the formulas that you need to replicate untuk cari the cost of debt, the KD, using the YTM method. Okay, using the YTM method. Right, so the discounted method ni kita ignore je. Okay, tapi kita fokus ataupun kita take this as an example. Okay, assuming JJB Spot plans to issue 1 million ringgit. So ni amount yang dia nak raise, 1 million. Okay, and the face value is 1,000 ringgit. So this is our par value, 1,000. Okay, and the annual coupon 12%. So coupon rate dia 12%. So the coupon payment would be 12% times dengan 1,000. So it's 120 ringgit. Okay, the coupon payment is 120 ringgit. For how long? For 10 years. So this is our N. So the N is 10 years. So we have CP, we have PV, we have N. So kita tinggal proceed sahaja. So proceed, we have to know the market price. So this market price is 950. Okay, so market price is 950. And then the other issuance cost 5%. So this is our flotation cost 5%. So flotation cost here 5%. Multiply again dengan par value. Sebab dia tak cakap kan. So kita assume 5% ni is based on the par value of 1,000 lah. So it's 50 ringgit. So basically what would be the proceed? So proceed would be 950 plus, minus 50 ringgit. And it becomes 900 ringgit. Okay, untuk proceed lah, proceed 900 ringgit. So now we have 4 information required. We have the CP, we have the PV, we have the proceed, and we have the N. Kan? So we can calculate with step number 1 to calculate the YTM. Okay, calculate YTM. So ni formula dia tadi we solve by using this formula, CP plus par value minus proceed divide by N, and then we divide everything by PV plus proceed divided by 2, and then we multiply with 100. So the coupon payment is RM120 plus par value is always 1,000, and the proceed we define it at RM900. Okay, and then we're going to divide this by the N, and N is 10 years, 10 tahun. And we divide everything by taking 1,000 plus 900 divided by 2. Okay, and don't forget to times 100 to get it in percentage. Okay, I explain one by one how to use your calculator. Okay, by sections juga. Okay, so always bila kita ada equation, we start from the top to bottom. Okay, that's rule number 1 lah. So bila kita ada equation, kita ada numerator on top and then we have denominator at the bottom kan. So for the numerator, untuk soalan ni, dia siap ada bracket dulu. So using the mathematical operations, konsep dia always use the bracket ataupun parenthesis untuk calculate dulu. So kita akan solve the ones in the bracket first. And then kalau ada darab, kita darab dulu. Kalau ada bahagi, kita bahagi dulu. And then baru kita cross to plus and minus. So dalam case ni kita ada bracket kan. So kita solve bracket dulu. So it's 1,000 minus 900. So it becomes 100. And then we divide it by 10. Okay, divide it by 10. So 100 divided by 10 is 10 lah. 100 divided by 10, 10 lah kan. So it's 10. Okay, and then kita plus dengan 120. So plus 120. So it becomes 130. Okay, so kalau you nak lagi clear, you boleh letak bracket kat sini jugalah. So to indicate that we minus first in the bracket, and then baru kita divide by 10. And then we plus 120. So ni pun sama. Okay, so we get 130 as our numerator. And then we're going to divide the denominator dekat bawah tu. So 1,000 plus 900 is 1,900. So 1,900 divided by 2, it becomes 950. 950. So kita bagi dengan 950. And then multiply dengan 100. So it becomes 13.68%. Okay, so this is our step 1 to determine the YTM. Okay, 13.68%. Okay, so next we need to identify the cost of debt, KD. Tapi nak cari cost of debt, we need to know the tax rate. Okay, so dalam slide ni tak beritahu tax rate berapa. But if we move to the next page, dia ada mention the second one ni, the marginal tax rate is 40%. So this is our T. Tax rate lah, 40%. So soalan ni suruh kira proceed ni. Proceed tadi kita dah kira pun kan kat sebelah ni kan. So proceed technically would be 950 minus 50. So it's 900 ringgit. Okay, kita dah define ni kat sini tadi. Kan? Okay, tapi dia tanya, kita kira lah balik. But now, the actual is to find the cost of that. So, step 2, sambungan daripada step 1 ni tadi, to find the KD, cost of debt. Okay, and our YTM is 13.68%. And we multiply it by 1 minus T, and our T is 40%. So 1 minus 40%. So 1 minus 40% is actually 60%, kan? 100 tolak 40, 60 lah. So 1 minus 0.4 is 0.6. So 0.6 darab dengan 13.68. So you left with 8.21%. Okay, so this is the after tax. Okay, the after tax. The after tax. cost of debts. So untuk company ni JGB Sport, if they decide untuk issue bonds in order to generate 1 million ringgit, so the cost for this company based on this information is about 8.1% after tax. Okay, after tax dia is 8.21%. Okay, so that is our first option, bonds. Cuma bear with me lah, bond ni memang the steps dia yang paling panjang lah dalam topik ni as compared to the other two kejap lagi. So for the preferred and also the common stocks, the rates ataupun the way we calculate the cost is not as long as this one. Okay, dia ada satu step je and then is the formula pun shorter sahaja. Okay, tapi for the bond memang dia panjang, ada 2 steps, and in fact when we convert into marks, memang bond punya calculation selalunya akan bagi markah lebih sikit lah as compared to the other options yang lain. Okay, so before we move on to the bond, okay, bond pula, to the preferred, mungkin I kedepankan sikit lah. So ni dah ada jawapan dia. Cuma when you see the answers dalam slide ni, dia tunjukkan both ways lah. So ada DCF tadi, and this is the answer for DCF, discounted cash flows, and you can see a slight different in terms of the answer. And in fact untuk soalan ni pun dia gunakan time value of money punya table lah untuk dapatkan jawapan instead of using the financial calculators. So if you use financial calculators, for example, based on this, you're going to get about 13.91%. Okay, lari sikit ni 13.92. So using financial calculator, it will give you 13.91, and the rate is around 8.35 lah after tax. Kalau kita kira guna YTM tadi, kita dapat 8.21 kan. So ada a slight different in terms of the answer. So I will accept both. Tapi again, untuk memudahkan cara kira, we just use the YTM, and I'm going to accept the answer juga kat situ. Okay, so this is the answer untuk YTM tadi lah. Okay, 13.68 and also 8.21%. Okay, so before we proceed dengan preferred, we're going to take a short break, and selepas I dah explain all three, we're going to pick 1 or 2 past year questions that can be used untuk illustrate lagi lah how we calculate all the costs available. Okay, so before we proceed dengan preferred, kita take a short break kejap. Okay. Right, so to respond some of the comments baru baca ni tadi. Okay, so obviously akan ada second round I guess, for those yang tertinggal bas on whatever assessment yang dah sudah. Okay, so just wait for the next round I can say the next round of untuk whatever assessment yang tertinggal in the future nantilah. So that one just check. So in the meantime, just make sure the forthcoming deadlines tu you follow. So nanti bila dah habis tu semua, nanti baru kita akan tengok balik lah those yang miss any of the assessments, right? So now let's resume. Dengan ada dua lagi sebenarnya, there are two more, cuma mungkin I simplify je lah kot the preferred and also the common stocks, right? So untuk preferred, ada lagi nak tanya? Yeah, to bear with me lah. So yeah, okay. So untuk the next two ni, okay, just to highlight maybe the usage of preferred and also common. So both preferred and common, as I said, belongs to the equity part. And nanti you baca lah dari segi characteristics of preferred dekat sini, whereby dari segi risikonya, always remember this sequence I just highlight the one yang paling rendah risiko adalah bonds, and then followed by the preferred stocks, and the most risky types of instrument would be the common stocks lah. Okay, from the investors' point of view at least. Okay, so that's why preferred stock is less risky as compared to common sebab dia berada di nombor 2, tetapi dia lebih risky as compared to the bond lah, sebab bond yang paling rendah risiko dia dalam case ni lah, case of preferential off treatment. So let's look at the characteristics for bond. Remember tadi par value dia 1000. Okay, the par value is 1000 for bond, but for the preferred stocks, the par value kita set at RM100. Okay, and they're gonna have a fixed return as well. So ni similar to bonds. Okay, similar to bonds. So bond return dia fixed. Okay, cuma return dia adalah dalam bentuk coupon, interest. Whereas for the preferred, dia punya return adalah dalam bentuk dividend. Okay, adalah dalam bentuk dividend. So the way how we express pun masih sama. It's based on the percentage of the par value. So again, if I use 5%, kita akan darab dengan par value. Cuma untuk preferred, the par value is RM100. So therefore, if it's 5%, the dividend would be RM5. Okay, sebab dia 5% of 100. Okay, of the par value. Right? So, in terms of maturity, dia tak ada maturity. So, macam bond tadi, dia ada maturity 5 to 40 years. But for preferred, this is similar to bonds. To common stocks. Okay, similar to common stock, dia tak ada maturity. So, it's unlimited life lah. And in terms of callable pun sama, this is similar to bond. Okay, why? Because the issuer can redeem ataupun can repurchase the bond, cuma kalau for preferred, cuma kalau bond dia akan redeem before maturity kan. But since preferred dia tak ada maturity, dia akan letakkan terms tu, dia akan repurchase after a certain date. So mungkin bila dia issue katakanlah tahun ni 2026, so dalam contract dia beritahu, okay, the preferred stocks can be called in 5 years time. So dalam tempoh 5 tahun akan datang. So pada tahun kelima nanti, issuer can redeem atau can call the preferred stocks tanpa ada maturity lah, sebab memang dia tak ada maturity pun. Right, so I'm going to write here the formula that we're going to use. Okay, so the cost ditulis sebagai KPS, cost of preferred stocks, and the formula would be dividend. Okay, dividend. Remember, dividend dia akan sama je sahaja sebab the dividends are fixed. Okay, sebab dia fixed kan dividend. So we need to know the percentage of the dividend, and kita akan multiply dengan the par value to get the dividend, and then we take the market price. Okay, market price of preferred, and then kita tolak dengan flotation cost. Okay, so technically MP tolak FC, this is actually similar to our proceed. Kalau kita patah balik kat sini tadi lah kan, proceed is market price tolak flotation, but this is for bonds. So for preferred pun sama jugalah, it's market price tolak dengan flotation cost. So ini je, bayangkan bond tadi kita ada kena buat step 1, banyak kita buat, ambil bahagi, tolak, tambah, darab 100, lepas tu cari after tax, then kita baru dapat final answer lah. Tapi untuk preferred stock, ini sahaja, but obviously kena darab 100 jugalah in order to get it in percentage. Okay, kita darab dengan 100 to get it in percentage. So 3 items, dividend, market price, and also the flotation cost. So you don't have to worry about selling price lah. I takkan tanya lah pasal cari selling price. So we just concerned about the cost. Okay, so this company wants to issue 1 million ringgit with a 100 ringgit preferred share ataupun preferred stock. So this is our par value lah, 100 ringgit, and then dia bayar 10% dividend. So the dividend would be 10% times 100 ringgit. So technically the dividend would be 10 ringgit. Okay, 10% darab 100 is 10 lah, 10 ringgit. Market price 98 ringgit. So this is our market price. And it's 5% flotation cost. So So the flotation cost would be 5%. Again, kita darab dengan 100, which is 5 ringgit. Okay, 5 ringgit. So calculate the after tax preferred. So walaupun dia ada guna terms after tax kat sini just remember we don't use the tax rate. Yang 1 minus T tu kita tak guna lah untuk preferred, and even common pun kita tak guna juga. So to find the KPS, okay, so the dividend kita dah define is 10 ringgit. Okay, so dividend is 10 ringgit. The market price is 98 ringgit. And the flotation cost is 5 ringgit. Okay, then multiply with 100 to get it in percentage. So it's 10 divided by 93 times 100. So we get 10.75%. Right, that's it. Itu je kita dapat the cost of the preferred stocks, 10.75. Okay, very much easier as compared to the bond, as I can say. Cuma markah untuk preferred ni selalunya yang paling rendah lah, ataupun dia lebih kurang sama macam common. So bonds memang akan bagi a little bit more marks as compared to the preferred and also common stocks. Okay, so inilah jawapan dia, 10.75 kan. So last but not least is the common stocks. So common stock ni is the most risky instruments. Cuma satu perbezaan dia, common equity ni ataupun common stock ni adalah represent the ownership. Okay, it represent the ownership. So if you allow common stockholders in the structure of your company, maknanya you issue funding ataupun you issue instruments untuk funding menggunakan common stocks, you are actually allowing external parties to be part of your company lah. So you membenarkan orang lain to enter the company as the shareholders. Okay, and the positions of ownership tu depends on how many ataupun how much shares you hold. So you pernah dengar kot, kalau you nak majority control a company, you can ada at least 51% of the company kan. So that percentage represent your position. Okay, and you are the real owner of the company, and therefore you bear the most risk as compared to preferred and also as compared to the bondholders just now. Alright, so in terms of characteristics, kalau bond kita ada par value 1000, kalau preferred kita ada par value 100. Okay, but for common stocks, we don't have a specific ataupun a standard par value. So par value dia bergantung kepada syarikat. It depends on the company, it depends on the value of your common stocks and the numbers of shareholders currently available. So the par value tu tak standard lah across companies. Right, and because of that, if you recall again, for bonds dengan preferred, bila kita calculate the interest, the coupon dengan dividend, we use the percentage and then we multiply with the par value in order to get the coupon ataupun the dividend. So for the common stocks ni, the dividend will be given in ringgit instead of in percentage. Okay, so dia akan bagilah the current dividend is 50 cents contohnya, ataupun the next dividend is 1 ringgit and 20 cents. Okay, so dia akan bagi directly dalam ringgit forms instead of in percentage. Okay, so that is the main difference lah when we talk about the characteristics of the common stocks. Okay, so the rest nanti you baca. So there are a few ways how to value the common stocks. So kita tak guna the zero growth stocks ni. Okay, we just ignore the usage of zero growth. We focus on the constant growth model. So kita akan gunakan model yang ini yang lebih dominant digunakan. We have the Gordon growth model ataupun the constant growth model. So what does it mean? Kita akan assume dalam model ni that the dividend will be growing at a certain rate. Dia akan bertambah pada satu constant growth rate. Okay, the growth rate. This growth rate dilabelkan sebagai G. Okay, yang G ni kan. So this G is the growth rate. Right, and I'm gonna rewrite how to get the cost of the common stocks. So KCS ni adalah the cost for the common stocks. So the formula would be, I'm going to write here dividend 1 ataupun dividend year 1, and I'm going to take market price minus flotation cost. Okay, and I'm going to put a bracket as a whole, and I'm going to plus with the growth rate. Okay, and this is the one that I'm going to use untuk calculate the cost for the common stocks. So what's the difference with this one dengan yang ni? Sebenarnya yang ni pun bukanlah salah, boleh je pakai yang ni. Cuma I want to give you more flexibility in terms of answering any questions, sebab bila I tulis macam ni mungkin lebih mudah untuk understand lah. So the concept of cost of common stocks, the formula is based on D1. So what does it mean by D1? D1, I tulis kat sini D1 means expected dividend. Okay, ataupun next dividend. So dividend yang belum dibayar lagi and is expected to be paid the following period. Atau dalam case ni kalau D1 bermaksud dividend for the next year, for the year number 1 lah. So sekarang, bila sekarang is D0. So bila next year kita label dia sebagai D1 lah, dividend year 1. Okay, so the base formula for the KCS adalah D1. Right, so apa pula maksud D0 ni? Okay, so D0 ataupun D kosong ni, D0 ni, it means current dividend. Current dividend ataupun recently paid dividend. Okay, dividend yang dah dibayar ataupun baru dibayar. So the difference between D0 and D1 means D0 ataupun D0 itu adalah dividend yang sudah dibayar, yang baru je dibayar sekarang. And D1 tu means dividend yang belum dibayar dan expected dibayar pada tahun akan datang. And remember the concept of golden growth ni tadi, dividen kita akan bertambah setiap tahun. So meaning, if your D0 is RM1, contoh, and you expect the growth rate is 10%, again, example, so your D1 akan bergerak lebih daripada tahun sebelumnya. So meaning if it's now RM1, and if it's grow by 10% each year, so D1 it will be RM1, and kita akan naikkan dia by 10%. So that's why 1 plus G ni is actually 1 plus growth rate. So kalau growth rate dia 10%, is 1 plus 10%, it becomes 1.1 lah. So 1.1 darab RM1, so our dividend for next year will become RM1.10. Okay, so that is the main difference lah between D0 and D1. Right, so if I write it this way, okay, so you boleh faham the concept that untuk KCS, kita nak dividen yang belum dibayar lagi ataupun the expected dividend. So, to put you in perspective, kenapa I tulis D1? Because of the nature of the question. Okay, the nature of the question. There are some questions that give you the expected dividend. Dia bagi dah the expected dividend in the question. So dia akan menggunakan keyword yang ni semua yang saya tulis kat sini, ini adalah keyword represent D0 or D1. So if the question kata the expected dividend is RM1 contohnya, then you put here RM1 and that's your D1. Okay, cuma there are some other questions, dia akan bagi the current ataupun recently paid dividend. So if that's the case, okay, if that's the case, that's not your D1, that's your D0 ni. So you kena expand it like this untuk cari D1 dia. So that's why you might have to use this formula kalau dia D0 ataupun D kosong tu So that's the main difference lah. That's the thing that you have to be careful. Read the question carefully and then extract the information accordingly, ikut information yang diberi lah. So the rest is the same as before. So market price, ambillah market price berapa ringgit, tolak flotation cost. Cuma we have to add with the growth rate at the end untuk dapatkan the total cost of common stocks. Okay, so untuk soalan common stock, yang tricky part hanyalah on the dividend part. Kalau preferred tadi yang tricky sebenarnya, I tak explain tadi Tricky dia dekat bahagian flotation cost ni. Mungkin kejap lagi ada example I akan share again lah. Okay, the tricky part. Tapi untuk common stock, the tricky part is bahagian dividend ni. Right, so the keyword ataupun the key is actually to look at the keywords. Okay, so this one tak payah tengok lah cost of retaining ni kita tak payah tengok, kita hanya fokus on the KCS sahaja. So this is the final example. The company is planning to issue new common stocks with the flotation cost of 5%. So this is our FC, flotation cost. So it's 5%. And this 5% kena darab dengan the price lah. So dalam case ni, the market price is RM5. Okay, so 5% of RM5 is 25 cents. Okay, and then this is the keyword, recently paid. Okay, recently paid. Okay, ingat tadi kalau dia current ataupun recently paid ataupun just paid, ada je perkataan yang paid yang dah dibayar. This is all D0. Kalau dia guna expected ataupun next, this is D1. So untuk soalan ni dia recently paid, so technically this 20 cent is our D0, D kosong. Okay, and the growth rate is 10%. So this is our G. Okay, market price RM5. So the rest ni you ignore lah sebab kita tak perlu kira KRE. So tax rate dengan brokerage fee ni kita tak payah take into consideration lah. So we just focus how to calculate the common stocks. Right, so the formula is D1. So since soalan bagi D kosong, so this 20 cents of D0 ni kita kena darab dengan 1 plus G. So the growth rate is 10%. So 1 plus 10 is 1.1. Okay, so this is the way we get the D1. Okay, D0 darab dengan 1 plus G. Then we get the D1 lah. And then the market price is RM5. and the flotation cost is 25 cents. Okay, put a bracket, and then we add the growth rate, the G ni G ni is 10%. So 0.2 times 1.1, so you get 22 cents. So 22 cents so adalah D1, 22 cents, and divide by 5 ringgit minus 25 cents. Okay, and then we add with 10%, 0.1, and you can times 100 lah to convert into percentage, and it becomes 14.63%. Okay, 14.63%. And that will be our cost of the common stock. So untuk common stock ni pun sebenarnya taklah sepanjang bonds, dia punya format. Cuma you have to understand whether the question give us D1 or D0. So kalau dia bagi dah D1, so you jangan darab dengan 1 plus G pula. So you just use the amount straight away in your formula. Okay, you're going to use that straight away in the formula. Okay, so yeah, 14.63 lah, sama So, to illustrate further, okay, untuk kita, ya, ada tak kita tulis kat sini. Sebab kena delete ni. Okay, sebab dia auto save ni, bear with me kejap I delete semua ni dulu, tak ada dah. Oh, ada lagi. Or else next time I buka, semua ni dah save sebab dia auto save I punya format ni. Habis kot Oh, ada lagi. So selalunya I discard tadi tapi kali first round tadi I lupa yang discard Okay, sorry. Now, let's look at some of the past year questions. Let's try July pula lah. Okay, this is July 2017. Okay, so soalan ni memang I tak discuss in the previous groups pun. So, mana soalan question number 4 kot So, kita baca dulu soalan dia. So, below is York Engineering Company's capital structure. So, dia nak raise 4 million ringgit. And then, dia bagilah all the information. And the tax is 40%. So, our T tax rate adalah 40%. So, dia ada 3 option. So, memang soalan ni memang akan tanya 3 ni je. We have debt, which is bond. Then we have preferred. And then we have the common stocks kan. And then setiap satu tu ada markah. So 4 marks for the debt, 3 marks for the preferred, and 3 marks for the common stocks. So ada 10 markah kat sini. And then they ask to justify the best cost. Maknanya dia suruh you pilih. Justify the best source. Okay, sumber yang paling terbaik lah. So 4, 7, 10, 12 marks kat sini. Okay, so let's try to look the answers. Okay, kita delete ni dulu. Okay, itu soalan untuk group yang tadi Jan 2018. So kalau you nak tengok jawapan Jan 2018, please feel free to browse the video later on untuk Jan 2018. So untuk you guys, I'm going to use July 2017. Okay, soalan question 4A. Right? So number 1, dia suruh kita calculate. Okay, calculate the cost for all the alternatives. So we're going to start dengan debt. Okay, debt ataupun bonds tadilah. That's our first items. So, I'm going to write all the relevant information. I akan translate ataupun transpose dalam kita punya jawapan ni. And then kita try to solve lah. So, for bond, it has 20 years, so that's our N. N is 20. They're going to pay 12% coupon, so kita punya coupon payment is based on 12%. And this 12%, remember, kita akan darab with the par value. So 12% times 1,000 is 120. It was issued 7 years ago. So untuk soalan ni dia tricky sikit. Walaupun dia N20, but it was issued 7 years ago. Okay, so benda ni tak pernah berlaku dalam soalan-soalan tadi. So untuk guru-guru tadi tu dia tak nampak ni. Okay, so what I'm going to do, we have to change the timeline. Timelines in the sense that, okay, imagine ni timeline kita. Dia ada 20 tahun. 0 dengan 20. So this is the original. So N dia 20 tahun. It's a 20-year bond. Okay, tetapi dia ada bagi satu maklumat dekat sini. It was issued 7 years ago. So technically we are not here. Kita bukan sekarang. Kita di-issue pada 7 tahun yang lalu. Okay, so we are here now. It was issued 7 years ago kan. So we are here. So N dia, okay, years to maturity, dia bukanlah 20 tahun total sebab kita dah berada di sini. So we left with this portion sahaja. So we left with this portion. So N kita, okay, our N is left with 13 years to go. Okay, daripada tahun ke-7 ke tahun 30, kita tinggal 13 tahun lagi, kan? So technically, the N is not 20, the N is 13 years. So itu ada certain tricky part dekat sini. Kalau you salah baca, salah lah kita kira. So that's the N. So N is not 20, N is 13. Remember konsep N tu tadi? How many years left to maturity untuk N tu? Okay, how many years left to maturity? And then dia bagi current market price. So market price dia 1,250 and 75 cents. Dia ada sen lagi. So that's the market price. And then dia ada cost of issuing. So this is our flotation cost. Okay, read the question carefully. Dia punya cost adalah 20% of par. Of par, dia specific of par. Sebab ada soalan mungkin dia kata 20% of market price. Okay, there are some possibility that the cost adalah based on market price. So kalau based on market price, kita kena darab dengan 1250 ni lah. But the question kata 20% of par. So par kita 1,000 lah. So 20% of 1,000. Apa tu? RM20 RM200. 20% 20% mahal Okay, it's RM200 rotation cost. So what happened to the proceed? So proceed dia adalah 1,250.75 minus 200. So it become 1,050.75 cents. So this is our proceeds. So banyak adjustment kita kena buat lah untuk soalan ni. So this is one of the more difficult question as compared to the one saya buat tadi untuk group yang tadi. Ni adalah soalan yang agak tricky sedikit lah. So it's not as straightforward. So the proceed is 1,050.75. The N is 13, not 20 it's 13 years. The par value memang 1,000 lah. The par value is 1,000. And what else? Itu je lah kan. The CP is 120. So now we calculate the YTM first, the yield to maturity. So the coupon payment is 120. Okay, the proceeds, the par value is 1,000. And the proceed is 1,050.75. And the N is 13 not 20. So close the bracket. Kita tolak dulu. And then we divide by 1,000 plus 1,050.75 and divide by 2. Okay, and you times with 100 lah to get in percentage. Right. So 1,000 minus 1,050.75. So we get a negative 50.75. So bila dia negatif, biar akan negatif you don't convert into positive amount. So memang ada possibility to get a negative amount dekat sini, especially if our proceed is based on premium. So bila dia premium lebih daripada 1,000, there's a possibility of a negative amount kat sini. Okay, but we divide it by 13. Kita bahagi 13. Then we left with negative 3 point something, and then we plus with 120. Okay, so kita solve the numerator, kita dapat 116.096. And then we divide by, okay, 1,000 plus 1050.75. So what I'm going to do, I terus je bahagi, and then I letak a bracket kat sini. Okay, I put a bracket, I take 1000 plus 1050, you boleh congak je kan. Dapat 2050.75, and I divide it by 2 kat situ. Okay, and then times 100, you get 11.32%. Okay, 11.32%. And this 11.32% is the cost before the tax, sebelum tax. So to find the KD, the cost of that, it's 11.32%, and darab dengan 1 minus T. And the T, I tak tulis kat sini pula. So the T, based on this question, is 40% tax bracket. So T dia 40%. So 1 minus T meaning 1 minus 40% lah. 1 minus 40%. So darab 0.6. So you left with 6.79%. So this is our cost of debt. So untuk debt, KD, it's 4%. It's a 4% lah. 6.79, which is 4 marks. Okay, 4 marks. Okay, so I can classify untuk soalan July 2017, question 4A, debts ataupun bonds ni, memang dia agak tricky sedikit lah. Okay, dia agak tricky sedikit. So untuk you all, please tengok video untuk grup yang tadi, grup 2N tadi. In fact sebenarnya I buat 2 soalan, I sempat buat 2 soalan tadi. December 2018 and Jan 2018. So you boleh tengok kat situ lah. 2 soalan lagi untuk long-term financing. Okay, so now let's move on to preferred stock. Okay, preferred stock ataupun preferred share lah dia tulis kat sini. So to issue a 9% annual dividend of RM100 par value. So ada macam-macam information, par value 100, I tulis. And then ada dividend dividend dia 9%. And 9% based on RM100, which is RM9 lah. Okay, and then the market price untuk soalan ni will be sold at 166.50 cents. So that's the market price. And again, whenever the price is higher than 100, kita panggil dia price at premium. So kalau dia jual bawah RM100, kita cakap price dia at discount. And then the flotation cost is RM2.50 per share. So tak payah kira lah, dia dah bagi RM2.20. So untuk soalan preferred stock ni, dia bagi je semua information kat kita. Kita tak payah kira individually. So itu saja. Dan kita boleh kira KPS straight away. So KPS is dividend RM9 bahagi dengan market price 166.50 cent and tolak flotation cost 250. Okay. And then darat 100 lah. So RM9 divided by 166.5 minus RM2.50 ni RM2.50 minus 250 darat 100. So you get 5.49%. Okay, 5.49. Tadi 6.79. For PS is 5.49. Okay, 5.49%. Okay, so faster lah. Kita nak calculate preferred stocks. In this case, 5.49%. And we have one more. So ni dah 3 markah, 3 marks. So we have common stock last. So common stock. Currently, the firm's common stock is selling for RM70 per share. So that's the current price. So market price dia RM70. The corporation just paid. So they use the word just paid kat sini, just paid. So we know that's your D naught, RM3.75. And dividend is expected to grow. The growth rate is 6%. And then flotation cost is 2.5% of the selling price. So selling price is RM70. So the flotation cost would be 2.5%. Darab dengan RM70. So RM70 darab dengan 2.5%. So it's RM1.75. Okay, RM70 darab dengan 2.5, you get 1.75. RM1.75. Okay, itu je lah kita perlukan. So to find the KCS, cost of common stocks, remember, kalau soalan dia bagi di not, this 3.75 ni kita kena increasekan by 1 plus G. So 1 plus G is 1.06. Market price RM70. Flotation cost 175. Okay. And don't forget to plus the growth rate of 0.06, the 6%. So 3.75 times 1.06, you get 3.975, and then divide by RM70 minus 1.75, 0.05, and then plus 6%. Darab 100 lah untuk convert percentage. So for common stock, it's the most expensive one, 11.82%. Okay, 11.82%. So technically, kita dah calculate 4 marks untuk that, 3 marks for preferred, and 3 marks for common. So dah 10 markah. And then we have 2 marks more to justify the best source. Okay, so kita ada 3 option. We have bonds, 6.79, preferred 5.49, and the common stock is 11.82%. So untuk pilihan, we always go for the cheapest one, the lowest rate, which is dalam case ni, it's 5.49 lah. Yang paling rendah kan, among the 3. So untuk number 2, menjawab the second part of the question, to justify the best choice. So you're gonna write sepatutnya, you're gonna first pilih, choose satu pilihan daripada 3 ni, and kita akan pilih whichever the lowest. So dalam case ni preferred stock so we're gonna choose preferred stock. Okay, so kalau you just jawab choose preferred stock, you dapat 1 markah out of 2, one out of 2. So how to get the full mark? You kena justify. Choose preferred stock. Why? Kena begitulah, because it offers the lowest rates. So dengan justification ni, then you get the 2 marks. Okay. So jangan tinggal jangan tak jawab pula ni, jangan tak tulis langsung, sebab ada je cases sebelum ni, dia dah kira ketiga-tiga ni tapi dia tak tulis pun which one dia akan pilih. Okay. So to get the additional 2 marks, you're gonna write the decision, and you're gonna justify why you choose your decision tu tadi lah. So dalam case ni, the best is preferred stock because it has the lowest rate. Okay, so the whole thing on the screen now worth 12 marks, 12 markah. Okay, and to put in perspective, okay, you all I tak sure semester 1 ke semester 2, I think you familiar dengan konsep exam dekat UiTM ni kan. The marks is based on 2 components. Kita ada continuous assessment yang carry mark tu, and we have the final assessment. Okay, and both components you kena lulus. Dia bukan tengok keseluruhan saja. Kalau dulu-dulu memang kita tengok overall dapat 50, then you pass. Okay, so the passing mark still lagi 50. Okay, sama je. But now you need to pass both components. Carry mark kena pass, final pun kena pass. Right? And for carry mark selalu ni tak ada isu, dengan syarat you buat semua lah. So again, kalau ada persoalan tadi, siapa yang belum menjawab a few assessment, I'm gonna give another chance later lah untuk you submit whatever assessment yang tertinggal. Okay, tetapi I'm gonna focus now on the final assessment. Ada satu lagi assessment yang kita akan buat on the 5th of July tu, masa kelas face to face tu. Kita akan buat second test kan. So for the second test, okay, final assessment punya parts, you punya passing marks kena capai 20%. Okay, 20% of the overall marks. So for the exam, for the final test tu nanti, so the marks selalunya dalam 60 markah. 60 markah. Okay, 60 marks. And it comes from the 4 topics. Kita ada short-term financing, kita ada long-term financing, which is today. And then the 2 more topics tomorrow, which is the time value of money and also the capital budgeting. So ada 4 topics. Right? And daripada 4 topik ni, total marks dia roughly around 60 marks, 60. Sebab kita punya exam ada 2 jam je dalam kelas. So in 2 hours time, tak mungkin I akan bagi you 100 markah untuk kira lah. Sebab for 100 marks, usually we need about 3 hours. Kalau kita punya exam dalam day 1 ataupun tempat exam, selalunya kita boleh buat 3 jam. So 3 hours, we can do 100 worth of marks. Okay, tapi sebab kita punya exam 2 jam sahaja, so we have, I roughly calculate around 60 marks lah selalunya, yang fair untuk you jawab. Okay, 60 worth of marks. So kalau 60 markah ni, 20% you kena dapat untuk di-consider sebagai lulus. So 20 out of 60, you convert is around 12 marks, 12 markah per 60. Okay, so 12 out of 60, you imagine page ni adalah 12 markah. So you kena dapat jawapan betul at least di screen untuk dapat the 12 marks just from one topic. Bayangkanlah kita ada 4 topik, so satu topik ada 12 markah macam ni. So you need to ensure you get all correct untuk long-term financing ni. Macam ni lah contoh dia. In order for you at least to qualify untuk pass the final assessment. Okay. Ada small percentage based on the previous semesters. Bila kita totalkan semua memanglah lebih 50. Okay, tetapi dia fail final. Final dapat 2/60, okay, 3/60, which technically will, you know, akan fail lah keseluruhan final assessment tu. Right, so this is your target basically to get 12 mark. Tu cuma contoh dari satu topik lah. So hopefully you can score more on other topics. And obviously don't target 12 lah. Target lah 40/60 ke, 50/60 ke kan. So just set a target, a minimum target untuk pass. Put in your mind is 12/60/60. Bila kita convert kan dia akan jadi 20%. Okay, jadi 20%. Okay, itu sahaja maybe for today. The highlight, which is the contribution of marks. So coming back to the assessment tadi, akan ada 2 assessment due soon. Satu group assignment yang I dah bagi much earlier. So I dah letak dia punya tapak tu kat dalam U-Future. And then there's another individual assignment due I think somewhere next week, kalau tak salah, end of next week. So ada seminggu lagi nak buat untuk individual assignment tu. And don't forget our final meeting nantilah 5th of July for the final test. Okay, so I think that's all for today. Thank you very much, and don't forget our appointment tomorrow for the final session. So esok memang kita akan wrap up dengan 2 topik terus, the final 2 topics. Cuma kita dah bagi feedback kalau bayangkan last semester, I tak sure you dah masuk ke belum, last semester seminar ke-7 tu adalah hari ni, hari Sabtu, and then seminar ke-8 exam dia esok hari Ahad. So kita dah bagi feedback kepada ISAPS, so dia anjakkan lah ataupun diawalkan yang back to back ni seminar 6 dan 7, so that you have more time untuk revisit the videos untuk seminar ke-8 somewhere in early July nanti. So with that, thank you very much again, and insyaAllah see you guys tomorrow lah untuk topik dua topik yang terakhir. Right? Assalamualaikum.
Terima kasih, Doktor.
Thank you, Doktor. Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih, Doktor. Thank you.
Alright, thank you.